Hi, I think everyone's popping in.
Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
everyone.
Welcome.
Welcome. So excited to have you.
Thank you for joining us today. We're at the tail end of the year and it's our final webinar, and we're excited to be here with you all. Um, while you're joining, everyone go ahead and share where you're calling in from and what strength that you plan to use today, either on the call or afterwards when you go about your day.
And I put that prompt in the chat, Sarah, for everyone. So if you need it, it's right there for you too.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'm calling in from Ohio, Alicia. You
Same.
too?
Yep. Southwest, though, Ohio. I think you're a little further north than me, Sarah, right now.
I am. I am. And I know Jane's calling in from Chicago, Illinois.
Wow, we've
Yeah,
got
calling the Chicago area, lots of snow and cold here, full force winter time. And I'm going to use my creativity later today to figure out how to juggle the rest of the day.
Love
got
that.
folks from India and Switzerland, and I think I saw Egypt and all over the United States and Denmark. So really exciting to just kind of look at the chat and see just the beautiful array of people.
That is always one of my favorite parts about our events is just seeing where people are calling in from and how we're based all across the globe.
And we appreciate all the time zones that people have to navigate to, some people might be getting up in the middle of the night from the other side of the world or, later in the day or early in the morning. So thank you for being here and making the effort.
Beautiful.
Oh, and I see our colleague Moxie. Hi, Moxie. Thanks for coming.
Come on.
We've got some more folks coming in, so we're going to give everyone just a few minutes to come in, and we'll get the session started in about a minute.
Ireland, Yokoso. I don't know where that is. Where is
Yo
that?
Yokoso is welcome in Japanese.
Oh, wonderful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, enlightening me. Ireland, Vancouver, Canada, Ohio. Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody. Hey, Danielle.
I know I saw Kenya as well. Oh yeah, there's Danielle, one of our VIA faculty members.
Great to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. From Dallas, Texas, from Lebanon, hello, Turkey, wow. Thank you for joining us. India is tremendous.
I saw top strength of love, mine too. So hi.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be using my prudence because we have so much good stuff to get through today and going to try to be timely about it.
Sounds good.
All right. Do we want to go ahead and get started? Before we do, though, I do want to just say really quick, before we kind of go through this, you can notice that you're probably on mute, but we welcome you to please enter in any comments, thoughts into the chat. We love questions, and so we have our Q&A feature on today, so you can click the three dots and more, and you can open that Q&A feature and add in any questions as you go, and Jane will answer some of those at the end, so we'll do our best to get to those. But if you have a question that's just top of mind as she's speaking, please pop it in the chat. We love to look at that, and we'll do our best to highlight it today. I'm going to throw it to you, Sarah, to kind of introduce Jane, please, for the day.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Sarah, and I work with VIA, and I'm also excited to introduce Alicia Powers, who's our Director of Instructional Design. And she is the creative force behind our Workplaces at Their Best consultant certification. So from design to digging into research and creating content, this is our gal. So lucky to have her on today. And also just sharing a little bit about the topic. So we are going to share how to turn strengths awareness into meaningful action using the VIA survey and the personalized Total 24 report. And we're excited to welcome VIA faculty and strength-based coach Jane Anderson. She brings deep expertise and a practical approach to using strengths in real conversations. So with individuals, teams, and organizations. So we're so lucky to have you today, Jane.
Thank you. So great to be here on this sort of end of year last VIA webinar of 2025. Great day.
We're super excited, Jane, because you're going to be walking through something we've never done before, which is the second part of the Total 24 report. And I feel like with your wealth of knowledge and experience and everything that you've had the opportunity to do, and little peek behind the curtain, but Sarah and I got the opportunity to really dive into all of these approaches with Jane ourselves, and it is just beautiful and really helped enlighten us. So I'm excited that we'll be able to get that kind of guided look today. We're also going to hear how you introduce strengths in coaching conversations. I think that is such an incredible and important thing that is sometimes challenging, right? And can be hard to navigate how to do that in a way that feels easy and accessible. And so really, we think this session is going to be perfect for you if you're a manager, a team leader, if you're working in HR, if you're a teacher, a coach, a professor, honestly, anyone who wants to bring this work to others. So we'll share a little bit more at the end, but I know Sarah has some really good information about some things that we're going to be able to offer at the end of today's session.
Yeah, you guys. So just wanted to quick plug. We have a promotion coming at the end of this call, and it includes free reports. So today we're reviewing reports, and so we thought it would be nice to offer you something special. So stick around to the end or follow up via email. You'll get all the information from us there. And with that, I just wanted to shout out our global partners. So these are people who are using character strengths in the classroom, in boardrooms, helping other people discover character strengths and how they can create connection, feel purpose, and help people flourish. So just to give you a second to take a peek at that. And with that, excited to jump into the topic today. So just sharing a little bit more about VIA for those who are new or others who don't know much about us. We have over 35 million people who have taken the VIA survey worldwide, and it's offered in 46 languages, which is probably why we're able to see so many people across the globe who are joining us today and who are using character strengths. So character strengths are the 24 positive traits that reflect who we are at our best. It's backed by 1,000 peer-reviewed research studies, and it remains the only scientifically validated assessment of character strengths. In our recent 2025 impact study, if you follow us at all online, we've been sharing it because we're super excited about it, but we found that 74% of people reported an increase in confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, we're a little trouble with your audio here. You're kind of coming in and out. So I'm wondering if Alicia, you might pop in real quickly.
Yeah. Richard, thank you.
Oh,
so Jane, you're absolutely right. So some of this data that's really exciting is that what we found is that 74% of people reported increased confidence alone just from taking the VIA survey, which is a really exciting piece of why this is already considered a positive intervention, which Jane, I know you'll talk about a little bit more, but the fact that this is the first thing that can be easily done and it's accessible is really exciting. So one thing that we want to say and we want to name is that, Jane, you've been working with coaching, organizations, leadership development. Can you just share a little bit more about what I was just naming about, utilizing the VIA assessment and kind of bridging into that with a client?
Yeah, and there's so many audiences that I've shared this fun and simple and short intervention with. I've used it, of course, certainly in my work with one-on-one coaching clients. I use it with all the teams that I work with, so that each team member takes the survey and then we put together a team profile. I've worked with other groups that I've offered it, and certainly offered in workshops to participants. But I've also offered it to my adult children. I wished I'd had this knowledge when they were growing up. I would have used it with them earlier, and I gave them a sort of a debrief session of their results. And I've offered it to friends and family. Sort of interestingly, I offered it to my parents, elderly parents, when they were in their 70s. And when my dad took the survey, he saw his results and he just exclaimed so loudly, "Look at all the strengths I have." He was so excited. And I even I took his top 3 signature strengths after he had passed, and in his a tribute to him, I highlighted his signature strengths and gave examples of how he lived into these over the course of his life. So, you know, you're only limited by your imagination and who you can offer this to and how to put it into practice.
I'll just jump in. I'm back. Woo!
Welcome back.
I think if anyone's been on Zoom before, which we all are, it never feels good when you drop off. So anyways, I wanted to share, I was recently at a dinner with like 10 friends, and I made everyone pull up the VIA survey and take it, which actually made me crack up. And a lot of people instantly could relate. They were like, yes, this strength, I can definitely see that in myself. And so it was pretty cool. Can be a nice little icebreaker, even if you're out to dinner.
I'll tell you that transparently, I have even been, I had a hospital visit earlier this year, and I was definitely telling my entire care team about it. We were having many conversations about it just because we were talking about the experience itself and what it's like for them caring and doing all of that work, and then myself experiencing it. And it's really just a beautiful conversation opener too, I think, and a connection.
So small, short little intervention, big impact. Great.
Absolutely.
Great. So shall we transition into
Yeah, so we
Total
were
24?
curious, and maybe I missed this, but
I think your text. Are you good? Okay, I see you, Sarah. You're good. She says, hold on. I think she needs a minute, so no problem. So Jane just shared with us what it means to be, to take, like she said, in very, very quick terms, right? Short, fast interventions, right? And how to apply that into coaching. And so, Jane, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the interventions, and I've got listed up here on the screen, Dr. Nemec's Character Strengths Intervention book. And so do you want to talk a little bit more about that and your approach with clients?
Yeah, so just kind of transitioning into the topic a little bit, and I'm going to try to go really fast through this first section. So if I'm going too fast, let me know. There's so much to cover that I want to share with you. But once you've taken this via survey, or your client or a friend or colleague, whoever you're working with, has taken the survey, a productive next step can be to dive into the Total 24 report. And this is VIA's most comprehensive report that's fee-based. But before we do that, I just want to mention something first, and give a little bit of context about my work, because I think it's important to mention that I promote myself as a strength-based coach and consultant. I know that many of you are doing the same. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, there's not a universal definition of what it means to be strength-based in this work, but I think a lot of us sort of fundamentally view this as a shift in focus from what's wrong, deficits, weaknesses, problems. So a shift in focus from what's wrong to what's strong. So building strengths, building what works, living into and leading from one's strengths. So we're not ignoring what's wrong, but we are sort of balancing what's wrong with what's strong. and focusing on strengths deliberately and strategically. And that's what I do with a Total 24 in my coaching and in my work. As a strength-based practitioner, when I'm speaking with prospective clients, I cover not only what is coaching, but what are character strengths, how they benefit us, how to weave in a number of different interventions into my approach. And so as an aside, there's a way to check in with yourself about being a strengths-based practitioner, and that's where we get to this slide right here. It's available in this wonderful masterpiece book called Character Strength Interventions, authored by Dr. Ryan Nemec of the VIA Institute. It is a masterpiece. You can find it here at this link, viacharacter.org/resources/books. And if you go back, if we advance to the next slide, you go to the Appendix B of this book. There's a checklist that you can use to sort of check yourself. A checklist for strength-based practitioners. There's like 15 to 20 items on this list. We've provided a sampling here. Things like, do you use the survey when you meet with a client? This fourth one, do you use character strengths to reframe a problem or a challenge they face? Do you know, this last one, do you have a handful of interventions to draw from in meetings? So, use this as a development tool for yourself. Which things am I already doing? Check those off. And then maybe there's one or two that you want to try leaning into or try practicing a little bit more. So there's tool number one for putting this into practice for you. Now, moving on from this, once I'm working with a client, they will take the survey. And you can take the slides down. I'm going to share my screen in just a minute. I ask the client to take the survey if they haven't taken it, and my very first session with the client is what I call a strengths debrief session. I use the Total 24 as a key resource in this session and throughout the coaching engagement. So let's transition. I will now share my screen, and we're going to go through an actual Total 24 report. Okay, can you all see this? Okay, is it big enough?
That
Okay,
looks great, Jane. Thank you. Yep, it looks good.
A little bit bigger?
Just a little bit, I think. But everybody's giving you a thumbs up, so.
Great. Sarah has graciously allowed us to use her report, so she's going to, thank you, Sarah. She's going to help us make this come alive. I'm going to start with the table of contents, just so we get a little bit of perspective. So let's go to the next page. You can see it's in section 1, and there are 2 sections. The first section highlights great information about the person's profile, their own strengths profile, so their results of taking the survey. It goes into great depth on signature strengths and what they are and how to use them. It goes into great depth on middle strengths and lesser strengths. Section 2 goes into much more depth on different facets of using your strengths, so the optimal use, a virtue profile, and so on. So I'm going to quickly go through section 1 and part of section 2, and go pretty fast through this so we have a little bit of time to spend on in this area of section 2. So there are different approaches to using the Total 24 report. Some coaches like to go through the entire thing in one sitting, go through the whole thing, just page by page, highlight different things, and talk about what's in there. It's wonderful content. That's a great way to do it. I don't do it that way. My clients tend to be longer term, so 6 months or longer. And so I like to pull from different parts of the report to fit the conversations that we're having. And that requires me to kind of know what's in the report. I've become very familiar with what is in there so that as it comes up, as a topic comes up, I can use a tool from the report that's applicable. And this helps them really think about putting this into action, is what I find. But either approach is fine. You might come up with something that works better for you. So let's go through section 1. I'm going to go quickly to page 4. Going back to my debrief sessions, in these first sessions, I do basically 4 things. Number 1, I review my clients' results and talk about their reactions to their results. Number 2, I hone in on their signature strengths with them, because these are the essential, their top 5 basically strengths that really reflect who they are when they're at their best. And we talk about examples of when they apply them in their personal and professional lives. Number 3, I touch on middle and lower strengths. And then number 4, I also touch on a concept that's in section 2, the idea of the optimal use over and underuse of strengths. And I'll explain a little bit why I do this. Number 1, I go right to this page. This is literally the first thing I do in a debrief session. We look at the profile, and here's Sarah's profile with her top strengths of fairness, humility, and appreciation of beauty and excellence tied for first, all the way down to self-regulation, which is number 24. I like this page because it's a great visual representation of all 24 strengths. You can kind of see the breakdown of top strengths, middle, and lesser strengths, so lots of conversation to be had from that. And then it also offers the raw scores. So it shows how strongly Sarah has endorsed these strengths, from the 4.75 top 3 strengths, which is very much like her, to self-regulation, which is a 3, which is kind of neutral. Now, while reviewing this page together, this profile, one of the first questions I'll ask is about the reactions they had to their survey. So things like what landed from as you're looking through these results, what has landed? What doesn't resonate with you? Is there anything that's confusing or surprising or disappointing? We might talk about how do these top strengths reflect who you are as a leader? All sorts of reflection prompts, discussion prompts. And I will say this is an important conversation to have. I urge you not to skip it whether you're working with a client or a family member or a colleague. Have this conversation. It's really illuminating. It reveals how people feel about their own strengths and who they are at their best. Sometimes we're uncomfortable talking about that. It can also uncover some really important blind spots, things like, some of us dismiss strengths as things that are ordinary or not extraordinary. In fact, one of my clients was high in humor, and they felt like humor wasn't even a strength. So kind of a sense of disappointment, and they wished another strength was a little bit higher. So, talking through some things like that, or misconceptions like love is not a workplace strength. How is, if it's my signature strength, how do I navigate that? But we do know that love can be a workplace strength, and Sarah showed that on the LinkedIn post yesterday, which is of the 3 of us doing a little heart symbol after we did our walkthrough on Tuesday. And we were feeling the love amongst ourselves, the connection, the spirit that was so positive among us.
Jane, sorry to interrupt you. We had a good question that I think is pretty relevant right now. Brenda asked, there's in the rank order, right? A lot of those strengths are pretty close together, and it can be challenging sometimes when you're talking to your clients. And so she's just wondering, how do you navigate that with the different perspective of like the 5 signature strengths? And I thought you could probably answer that pretty well.
Yeah, 2 things come to mind. The first is that anything that is less than a half a point difference is probably not a material difference. So Sarah, you might consider these, they all have the same ranking. They might be equally important to you, to who you are at your essence. That's number 1. And number 2, what was number 2 that I was thinking of? Right, so Sarah, for instance, has 2 sets of sort of tied strengths. So she might consider that she has 6 signature strengths rather than 5, that all of these might be considered signature strengths. Or where there are ties elsewhere that, all of these might be sort of similarly lesser strengths. Yeah. So the ties, in my view, can signify things that are, equal in strength, at least the way that you endorse the strengths on the day that you took them. And any small differences are typically not, material differences. I hope that helps. Am I answering the question?
I do
Okay,
have one
great.
more question, Jane, if you want, really quickly. Do you
Sure.
have any super quick thought or advice or strategy for the way that people see their lesser strengths, that they go into that place where they maybe see it as weaknesses?
Absolutely. If we could just hold that for just a minute, that's
No problem.
exactly where I'm going with this. Yeah. And actually, the Total 24 report is a great tool to help us discuss that. So we'll go there in just a minute. In fact, let's go there right now. I'm going to breeze through. Once I've gone through this section, we do, well, first I want to quickly point out that in the report, the next page, page 5, you'll notice that it does talk about, how to define signature strengths right here, the 3 E's. They're essential, effortless, and energizing. So it's all right there in the report. Here are some reflection questions you can ask about your clients' reactions to their survey results. And then each of the signature strengths is highlighted in much more depth. I'm not going to go through all of this because you can read through it, but how others describe you, science-backed facts, and reflection questions for each of the top signature strengths in the report. Okay, let's go directly to that question about the lesser strengths. If we go to page, let's see. Well, while we're here, let's stop on middle strengths real quickly. As I mentioned in my debrief session, I do, pop into middle strengths just a little bit, just to let my clients know that these are supportive strengths, right? They help us rise to the occasion. You can read all about it right here. There's information on exploring the middle strengths, how to reflect on it, priming for strengths so that you're prepared and grounded in strengths when you want to take an action that might be challenging, or even just a mundane activity that you're going to next in your day. So it's all right there in the middle strength section. All right, let's get to lesser strengths. If we go to page, what page is this? 27. How do we address this? It's very common for clients to jump to the bottom and say, well, these are my weaknesses. And you want to reframe that. You want to talk about this with them because, and it says right here, lesser strengths are not weaknesses. Here's a description of what they are. They might feel less developed or less realized. They might be a little bit more challenging to elevate, a little bit less natural for us. So they might take a little bit more time or deliberateness in order to raise those strengths up. But they're still strengths. We need them. Sarah needs her self-regulation in certain circumstances to manage her emotions, right? I think if I recall correctly, bravery might have been towards the bottom. Many people have bravery in their lower strengths. We need to be brave and give voice to things that, or be direct about things at various times in our life. So we know we have these strengths and we can use them. So again, all here in the report, and that's a really great question. There are activities in this report, how to apply different strengths. Clients will usually or often say, it's great to be more aware of my strengths, but how do I put them into action? How do I apply them, right? You can go into the report and here are some sample activities if you're struggling. How to this is for the lesser strengths right here, but it also has this for signature strengths in the report. But if Sarah wants to practice self-regulation, pause and breathe with a difficult experience for a count of 10 breaths. Simple, basic way to put self-regulation into action. Or creativity, right? And so on. So it's so much great content in this Total 24 report. I use it all the time. I really highly encourage you to really familiarize yourself with these different sections. Okay, I know I'm flying, but I'm going to fly just a little bit more. I'm going to go into one tool in section 2. I typically refer to this in my debrief sessions also, and I'll explain why. It's this page 31. The optimal strength use. This is a topic that comes up a lot in coaching, and it starts in my debrief session. Why is that? It's because clients bring their frustrations and conflicts and problems into coaching, right? This is a big part of the reasons for coaching. And often these challenges can be explored using a lens of strengths rather than, we like to blame people for mistakes that have been made or for relationship challenges or conflicts that are happening. But we can look at these using a lens of strength, and here's a tool that can help you do that. So let me just explain real quickly what this chart is showing us. It gives us the optimal use of each strength, what it looks like to overuse it and underuse it. So there's basically a continuum of the degree to which we use each of the 24 strengths. So with fairness, we can use it in a balanced way or optimal way. If we overuse it, it can seem sort of detached. I'm right here on Sarah's top strength of fairness. If we underuse it, it can come off as prejudice and complacency. So when we're over and underusing a strength, it's not really acting like a strength anymore. We want to strive for a balanced use. And so let's make this come alive. If Sarah was a client of mine and came to me with, let's say she was feeling stuck in a project, she wasn't able to move forward, or she was having a relationship, conflict with somebody at work or at home, we might go into, I would probably choose these 3 strengths that I've highlighted as a starting point. So her signature strength of appreciation of beauty and excellence. Sometimes in an overuse situation, it can start to lean into perfectionism. So I would ask Sarah, is it possible that you're overusing your signature strength a little bit? Are you feeling like it has to be a certain level, but really it would, be okay if it was good enough to move forward? Or a middle strength, judgment, could there be an overuse of judgment, a little bit too much critical thinking? Do we need to open the perspective a little bit? Is it getting a little too rigid? Or is there an underuse of bravery? We need a little bit more, let's take a bold step forward kind of thing. So Sarah can decide one of these things, or maybe there's another strength that's in action, and looking at this through the lens of strength. So now we can start to problem solve. Well, what if we were to lower that overuse of critical thinking, or raise up bravery, or maybe there's a whole other strength that would be more helpful to help take a step and move forward, okay? So this gives us a whole new conversation around problems and conflicts and challenges. And so I would invite you to think about your own situation. Has anyone ever been in a conflict with someone before? I know that we all have, right? You might think of someone now that you're having some frustrations with, or maybe a conflict with, and when convenient, just take a moment to use this grid and think about Am I overusing a strength? Am I underusing a strength? Is there one I should temper or raise up? What other strength could be more helpful to easing this tension? And then take action using that strength. So we're reframing problems and challenges, and we're moving forward using a strengths-based approach. We can do this individually. We can do this on teams. I'm going to just pause there for a minute. I see Alicia snapping there, wondering if you want to chime in here, add something about working with the teams, like in workplaces at their best, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely, Jane. Thank you. So I love that prompt. I put it in the chat just because I think that one of the most common challenges we have isn't always appreciating others. It is sometimes figuring out how do we navigate conflict or repair harm with each other, right? How do we move forward? And often it starts with ourselves. Just like we always say with the survey of understanding our own unique constellation of strengths, I think it's also understanding how those strengths show up with others. And we dive into that pretty deeply in workplaces at their best. But I will also just say, I think your prompts are such a great place to start as a great jumping off point for that and for being able to do honestly what Sarah named in the chat too, which is pause, take those 10 seconds right before kind of diving in and jumping into a conflict. I think that space, that mindfulness, that mindful pause essentially, right? That's brought up in mindfulness-based strengths practice is so important. And it's something that I think when we're in workplaces can really solve some of those conflicts or at least help us start to build the bridge towards that way.
Beautiful. Yeah, so you can use it with yourselves. You can use it with your family members, with your teams, with your employees, with virtually everybody that you're working with.
Yeah. Can I jump in real quick? So something that was a huge insight for me when we were doing our original run through was the overuse of appreciation of beauty and excellence, and just realizing that that can come through as perfectionism and never really knowing when something is quite done. And so that's something I'm taking and I'm using like right away, even, you know, in projects that I'm currently working on, and just acknowledging that there's a point where it's good and you can pass it off and go from there. So any of my perfectionists out there, maybe you are overusing your appreciation of beauty and excellence.
It's just such a beautiful way of reframing things. And I have to tell you, it's a positive way too. People get energized and they feel like they have agency when they, you know, use this tool, because it's like, oh, I can look at this in a different way, in a way that I have control over, and I can change my actions to bring about positive change. So thank you all for the beautiful comments. I think we'll move on to the next section in the Total 24 report. Now, again, we're in section 2. This is the virtues profile. And after the overuse, underuse, optimal use that we just talked about, this is probably the next tool in section 2 that I access most often. It helps my clients and it helps me as the coach see a bigger picture view. So we're raising our perspective, our character strength of perspective, which is one of my top signature strengths. So this is important for me. And I like to provide context because of that. So if you're not familiar with the virtues, the virtues are the 6 broader categories that you see right here: humanity, justice, transcendence, etc. And all 24 of the character strengths roll up into one of these 6 categories. Right below this grid, you can see which strengths roll up into which virtue categories. So humanity strengths include kindness, love, and social intelligence. Justice strengths include teamwork, fairness, and leadership, and so on. So it's all right here for you. I want to mention a little bit of a shortcut that I actually learned from Alicia recently, and she told me that Michelle McQuaid, who is legendary in the field of positive psychology and known also for her character strengths work. She describes the virtues as abbreviations of strengths. Abbreviations of strengths. So what that means is there are 24 character strengths, and that's a lot. That's a lot of things to learn and explore and dive into. But the virtues are kind of like a shortened version to help us remember and see the bigger picture of who we are when we're at our best. So let's dive into this just a little bit. The humanity, so this is, again, Sarah's virtue profile. You can see that her top virtue is humanity and her lowest virtue is wisdom. And it makes sense because Sarah has all three of the humanity strengths. Again, love, kindness, and social intelligence. These are all signature strengths for Sarah. So it kind of makes sense that this is her top humanity, her top virtue category. So that humanity strengths help us to build one-on-one relationships, strong relationships. And then interestingly, her next virtue category is justice. And Sarah, I'm going to bring you in here for conversation in just a minute. Justice strengths are about building strong relationships in groups, so families, teams, communities. They kind of balance each other. Then the courage and the temperance strengths, I think, kind of balance each other. If you think about it, the temperance strengths help us to kind of rein things in, rein in our appetites, rein in our emotions. And the courage strengths help us to push forward through fear, through obstacles. They kind of balance each other. Then the transcendence and the wisdom strengths, they kind of balance each other too, I think. Transcendence being sort of experiential, spiritual, connecting to higher purpose types of strengths. And the wisdom strengths are head-based. They're cognitive strengths to help us acquire knowledge and innovate. So this is a new way of looking at strengths, and especially in Sarah's case, let's go into a couple of questions. So if we go to the next page, you can see some reflection questions right here. I'm not going to stay on this page. I'm going to stay right here for now. But Sarah, if you wouldn't mind popping in now and just, for starters, what is your reaction to humanity being your top virtue?
Yeah, I definitely aligned with this. And I just wanted to point out that I think because I'm high in humanity, it brings up my justice strengths as well, because I care about others, and that extends to not just the people close in my life, but anyone that I come into contact with.
Yeah. Alicia, would you pop in and mention something, knowing Sarah? We've worked together. Do you have a comment on how you see her humanity strengths or what this means from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely, Jane. It's funny because absolutely love the idea of the abbreviation, right, of our strengths, because sometimes all 24 strengths can be a hard, and if I looked at Sarah's, I know for her, fairness is high, humility is high, love, social intelligence, kindness, right? They're all very high. But this gave me a more interesting perspective on Sarah, I think, because I know that's true about her humanity. I see her as a relationship manager every day. She is such a warm person. She connects us. She always checks in on, at least for me, she's always checking in. I know she does this for others. And she always finds ways to make new relationships with people. She is genuinely interested. And I think I was thinking about the fact that it's humanity and justice, as these two top, virtue categories. And it made a lot of sense to me, especially when you were just saying that it's others focused. You can clearly see that with her, that she focuses her energy, her kindness, her love to others, right? And that's a really great lens for me because it doesn't become just the singular strengths, right? It becomes that kind of pull together of her strengths, of me understanding her a little bit better about why does she do her actions the way she does, how does she navigate our work life, right? And all the things. And it just makes it so much more connective as her colleague, and I learn from her because of it. I can see how she's doing certain things or the decisions she makes, or just, I mean, I'm sure everyone's already experienced it. The warmth and the grace she has, even in challenge, right, is so apparent. And she's taught me some strategies, and I can see that through these virtue categories. And it just kind of widens the picture, the window for me a little bit more.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So there's so much conversation to be had around these. We could ask, what does this say about who you are as a leader, as a parent, as a grandparent, as a colleague, and so on. Lots of conversation. And Sarah, I know we're kind of running close on time. I'm going to ask one more question. If there was one virtue category that you would like to boost up, which one would you choose?
All right, hoping everyone can hear me. Definitely
Yeah.
courage. Definitely courage for me. Just having bravery to speak up with high humility. Sometimes it can be challenging to put your voice out there. And so I think tapping into bravery for sure.
Great. So knowing that, we can turn to page 37, I think, in the report. Yeah, 37. And it gives a grid here that shows for each of the virtue categories, what is your highest strength within that virtue category? And this is called a pathway strength. So to boost courage, Sarah's highest strength is honesty. So it might behoove her to find a way to become, more direct, or maybe either with someone else or maybe with herself, within herself. Sometimes boosting honesty and bravery together are kind of a powerful 1-2 punch in terms of character strength use. And it takes courage to be honest with ourselves. So here's a tool that can help you figure out where to go. Once you've identified, is there one you'd like to boost up a little bit more? What is the pathway to getting there? Great tool right here. Okay, I think we said 50 minutes. We're at 50 minutes. I'm happy to continue, but I'll leave that up to the two of you to figure out where we want to go from here.
Beautiful. Jane, do you want to just take a couple minutes for any potential questions that people might want to send in the chat right now? And we, of course,
Sure.
respect everyone's time. So if you have to hop, don't forget that we always send the recording after the call as well. And so while those are coming in, Sarah, did you want to share anything about what VIA is offering too? Oh, you're
Yes,
on mute. There.
I'm off mute now, everyone. Yes, so just very quickly, we're running a promotion for 1 week only. Buy 5 reports, get 5 reports free. We will be sending this in an email communication to you afterwards. But yeah, if you add 10 reports to your box, and then you type in the code VIA Growth Bundle, it will take half off for you. So a good way to kind of kickstart working with the report with anyone that you support. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the Q&A.
So we did get a question in to the chat, a couple of questions. They said, can you please recommend how you open up a conversation about the character expressions map?
Yes, we talked about whether we were going to discuss this or not here. Let me go back to sharing my screen, and decided against it because it does take some time to provide some context and unpack, and we didn't feel like we were going to have the time for this, but that's a great question. So let's go to the expression map. Whoops, where is it here? There we go. Okay, the beloved expression map. I love this, actually, but it does take a little bit of time to understand what we're looking at here and then how to use it. So I'm going to describe it as succinctly as I can and then offer an example, and then our conversation can go from there. This is a representation of all 24 character strengths. They're plotted on this map, and they're plotted along two different dimensions. On the horizontal axis, we have the head and the heart strengths. On the vertical axis, we have the relational and inward strengths. The head strengths, these are strengths that are based in cognition, so thinking strengths. Things like judgment is probably the easiest example. It's literally critical thinking. The heart strengths are based in intuitions, in feelings, in the body. And so, again, love, humor, and so on. The relational strengths are other-oriented. So these are strengths that are typically expressed with others. So teamwork is an obvious example, kindness, and so on. Inward is considered an intrapersonal, so within oneself, expressed typically alone or by ourselves. For instance, love of learning, creativity. Now, to make this a little more complex, all of character strengths can be expressed in the opposite part. So a head strength can be expressed through the heart and vice versa. And other strengths can be expressed inwardly. So for instance, we can express kindness to ourselves. We can include others in our learning, and so on. Each of the 24 strengths is plotted here. These are fixed. All of these dots are fixed. They don't change for anyone who takes the report. This is how they're currently mapped. What changes is the dots that are highlighted. These are the signature strengths of the person taking the survey. So now I'm going to go into an example so you can see how this actually applies. I had a client who came to me and was really tired. He described himself as having brain fatigue, lots of decisions, lots of analysis, lots of brain work, lots of cognitive work. I went directly to this expression map, and we discovered that all of his signature strengths, and even some lower, going down into the middle strengths, were head strengths for him. So he was in a time in his work when he was doing a lot of head work. He was maybe overusing many of these cognitive strengths, the judgment, the perspective, the perseverance, the prudence, just, constantly churning that kind of work. And so we talked about the possibility, what would it be like if he were to get a little bit into his heart a little bit more, into the heart strength? Could he help to balance that fatigue, getting more into feelings, intuitions, the body? And he did. He chose humor and zest as two strengths that he wanted to try cultivating a little bit throughout the day to help balance this fatigue he was feeling. And he reported, he came back the next week and said, yes, this was really helpful. I was able to kind of, give my brain a break. And I'm not sure there's really any science around what I'm telling you. I'm just anecdotally describing an example of how this is coming.